Guess what? It's Jane and I again, having a
Hello.
chat up today. We're talking about things like contrast, the power of information, because they go hand in hand. We're talking about our relationship with the rules or the laws of the universe that most of us haven't got a clue about, but are there. They're there. It's because it's physics. Any questions? Any comments?
Well, I was thinking about what you were saying about information and about how what you're thinking and what you're feeling is information for you, as well as, I mean, one tends to think as a human that what you're thinking and feeling is who you are,
Or is real?
or is real, or you believe it. So
Yeah.
you have a thought like, I can't do that because of whatever. I can't get this thing that I'd really like because there are all these obstacles in the way. Or I'm going to go on a goal setting course so I can formulate a goal and then plan my steps and get the thing that I want. You get told a certain amount of stuff about how you work as a human, and you can learn some things. But I get that what you're saying is that there's information on a richer level that's available to humans that isn't given them.
Okay, so you shared something fabulously with me this morning about a realization your daughter had some time ago about how she suddenly discovered that certain feelings she was having and emotions and thoughts in relationship to a project that she was doing as a young adult, she remembered that was exactly the same she had experienced when she was a young girl doing something. And what amazed her was she thought by the time she was an adult, she wouldn't be feeling those things, she'd be feeling really good.
No, she didn't think she'd be feeling really good. She thought she'd be having more complex negative feelings of the barrier.
All right.
That she would be, because she was 25 now, that she wouldn't be feeling like she was when she was writing her essay on Tutankhamun. Which is what she did when she was 10.
So, but essentially what we're saying is, this is what most people believe. You see, take a kid of 8, 9, 10, 11 or 12 who's got negative emotions going on in relationships to something. I guarantee you that most of them believe that one day they won't, especially when they become an adult, when they get their own independence, when they have a job, when they have a family of their own, they're not going to experience any of that stuff. Because that's the illusion we're given to believe.
Yes, and you're right there. That's what she did. She did have that. That was the experience. Was like, I didn't expect to still be feeling those kind of feelings that I had when I was 10.
Because that's what we're teaching our kids. That's what we're role modeling to our kids, and we're deluding them on the original delusion, which is that they are those feelings. And the information we're given is crazy. The information we live with today is crazy, but look how powerful it is, because you've got social media and all these other things telling us what we should think and what we should feel in relationship to actually they hone in on the very things that right now are causing us pain. Because if someone does something on social media and you resonate with it, and they say, well, this is the solution, people buy into it. We've seen all these activities that have taken place over the last few years, social activities, political activities, and everyone's buying into it. What they have not stopped to look at is the very feelings and thoughts and emotions that hook them into it have been there probably since, if they can remember. All right?
Yeah,
it depends how much
of not being good enough. So, I mean, if you just think about advertising products, and sometimes I've caught myself, like particularly scrolling at night. I'm confessing here, scrolling at night and seeing something and thinking that will make a difference.
Yeah. Marketing is brilliant.
Actually, I thought, honestly, why on earth did I buy that? That was a complete waste of money. Because it wasn't. It was just like hope.
Yeah, but sometimes
that would make a difference.
But sometimes it does make a difference for a week. I wear that new outfit for a week and I feel good. Okay,
Yeah.
let me get some implants done and I'll feel good for a week.
Yeah.
But it's very interesting because you can't keep running away from what's going on inside yourself.
No.
Okay, cannot keep running
No.
away from it. So, again, what I've tried to do is, and I ran for 50 years. Okay, I really did. That doesn't mean I didn't feel those things. It doesn't mean in my running that some things didn't get better in terms of my living, adjusting to life. But I didn't get away from what was really going on. And I've never met anyone who's run that did get away from
And
it.
you mean what was going on inside in terms of your thoughts and feelings?
Yeah, and my core beliefs about myself, how I really felt about myself and how I felt about life and how I looked at the world. Yeah, and that's going on all the time with everyone. I'm amazed how many people want something, driven to want something. It can be anything, a job, a relationship, a position in life, a role in life. And they really do believe, they may not say it, that when I get that, everything will be okay.
Yeah.
All right? And yet, their heart energy is filled with negative stuff. Not because of anything right or wrong. It just is. Because everything's about energy. And with that is information always available to us. But I never knew, I didn't know that until I was coming on for 60. All right? Really get to start understanding this. And I'd done everything. I'd done all the workshops. We've talked about all that. This stuff, I'd done all the stuff. I'd listened to so many influencers of whatever you want to call them at different levels. Okay? And by the way, I really believed a lot of them knew better than me. They had answers, but there's never a solution in the problem. And that's a bit of information that most people still don't get. There's no solution in the problem. Doesn't mean the seeds aren't there. The seeds are in the fact that there's information.
All right. So there's no solution. So if you've got a problem, if you've got something you want and you feel negatively in relation to it, then say for example money, and you're thinking, okay, I've not got enough, or I need to, I've got to do this. You're saying there's no solution when you're within that problem.
Correct.
And what do you mean by that?
Okay.
And where is the information that will guide you?
All right. So Einstein said something magnificent. He said, you want to fix a problem? Doesn't matter whether it's a personal problem, family problem, community problem, society problem. Change your thinking that created the problem first.
Change your thinking
That created the problem first. Which means you need to identify your thinking that's created the problem first. So the seeds for the solution are in your thinking. So let's take a simple one. You talked about money.
Yeah.
How many people who don't have money and it's causing them pain actually stop and look at inside themselves diligently, not intellectually, but diligently, go into their heart and see what's going on in relationship to the subject of money? How do they really feel about it? What are their real thoughts about money? And look at what I'm currently thinking. Really, because that'll tell me what I really believe, not my intellectual, I want more money. Because it'll tell you. You see, it's not possible to have an empty bank account and be feeling and thinking from a stance of abundance. It's just not physically possible. It's trying to defy gravity, yet we all do it. Now, we do that in relationship to all sorts of things, I feel insecure about myself, so that person, that girl, that guy, whatever, that job is going to make me feel good. And I'm going to walk around, show how cool I am. All right? Now, I'm not saying it doesn't work for a while. It does work for a lot of people. I feel sorry for the people who are involved with that person. Because that's what I never understood, that there were people who would get the brunt of my act, my facade, my game.
Because you were using that person in order to make yourself feel better.
Well, yeah, I mean, I wasn't consciously going out to use them. Or,
No.
Sometimes we do, but for the most part, I was deluding myself, and they were stupid enough, ignorant enough, and insecure enough to get caught in it as well. I said every day I watch my sons interact with other kids, and how often my sons have fallen for the person who looks the coolest and puts in the biggest act. And then I'd ask my son some questions, and they would go away and they'd look deeper and they'd come back and say, God, that person really is insecure. Because as soon as that person's buttons are pushed, the meanness comes out. What's in their heart comes out. What's going on in their energy field. Okay? And this is happening all the time. You know, so change your thinking, meaning see what my thoughts are. That's the information. That's the contrast. And then maybe start looking
right,
at...
So the information, when you're saying information and knowledge are power, it's understanding your thoughts.
Get the correct
examining
information.
Your thoughts.
Yeah, get the correct information.
And your feelings and examining those and thinking, what is that really saying about my beliefs about the topic?
Yeah.
About what I think is possible and not possible
And that's
in relation to the topic.
Absolutely, yeah. And then take it even further, which is starting to expand one's awareness about actual real information in this universe as opposed to the one I'm believing. You know, we know that there have been teachers, philosophers, whatever you want to call them, prophets who've existed on this planet for thousands of years that gave us clues. And we do not pay any attention to them anymore. We quote them. I'm not saying we don't quote them. People even spend thousands on this stuff. But they really don't hear what the person was really saying. You know, to an extent, Buddha said, the physical life is suffering due to ignorance as to who we really are. Okay, there's teachings in other religions and spirituality of the same message, same principle about the level of ignorance that we operate in, and that's information that's so important.
So when you say Buddha's saying that life is suffering, you're saying that that's to do with people not understanding the information about who they are.
Yeah, who we really are. Yeah.
That's why it's suffering.
Yeah, because the physical life is suffering. It's really hard. How many people really fulfill their heart's desires and live a great life on this planet? You ever stopped and think about that?
And you're talking about not a great life. You're talking about a great life in different terms than, you know, having a fortune or...
No, yeah, I don't mean that. I'm talking about living a life of freedom, experiencing autonomy, experiencing security where you're at peace with things and it's okay. You're not going to get beaten up. You're not going to get oppressed. You're not going to get, you know, I'm talking about basic stuff. How many people do you think actually live that life? Just look on social media in our world today and there's the answer. There are so many people who are troubled by what's going on in the world and who are taking sides and wanting to eliminate those, in the name of good.
Yeah.
Okay? And it's only because of what's going on in their heart. I mean, think of the craziness, the insanity. I've got an issue with you for whatever reason. It could be your race, your color, your religion, your sexual preferences, the way you dress. I have an issue with it. I feel an angst when I see you.
Yeah.
So I decide that I'd like to eliminate you, okay, in some shape or form, or change your thinking. I'd like you to be like me.
Yeah.
This is insane. If you really look, I'm insane. Because, you see, I can eliminate all of you who fall into that category. And what am I left with? You think my feelings are going to change? About myself and about my world and about what's really going on? No, it's not possible. It never has happened. It hasn't happened in 50,000 years. Do you know that they've proved that the human race, as we know it today, the human being, survived due to our relationship with the Neanderthals? It's a physical fact, scientific fact, okay? Integration. When human beings try to make it on their own, they nearly went extinct. Okay? And then they started interacting with the Neanderthal. What did we do? We killed them all in the end. Because we didn't like them. Because they didn't look like us. Because they weren't like us. Listen, we've done that since the day one. All right? It's not... Listen, there's nothing wrong with expansion. You know, man chose to expand at some point. So he kind of set sail to take the world over, and he went to islands where there were different people who looked different. And he killed most of them. All right? The solution's not what we think it is today. It's the lack of understanding of what's going on today. That was part of the humanity's evolution. So we hopefully would change the way we go about it.
Yeah, I mean, people would say, oh, that's very Western focused, you know, that expansionism, but
Hey,
I mean,
it's not just Western.
No.
Let's not delude ourselves about that one. That's getting political, all right? Believe you me, this was going on in Asia. The clans were, and they
Yeah.
were killing each other. In Africa, it was going on, okay?
Yeah.
A lot of people don't know for a simple fact that the Zulus, who are an amazing people in South Africa, did not start there. I wonder how many
Okay.
Zulus even know that they didn't start there.
Where did they
They
start?
came from further up north, and then they got rid of a lot of people on their way because they were a pretty powerful tribe. Okay, and then they ended up, you know, creating their environment. This is not about the Zulus. The point I'm making is the level of ignorance. There you go.
Yeah.
We're all ignorant.
Yeah.
Okay.
And what's interesting as well is that people take some information and then use it as evidence of the fact that they're right
Correct.
about a situation.
More importantly, they use it as evidence to what's going on in their heart, in the real heart, the feelings, the energy field, their vibration. And that's the scary part. Because that, you see, it's the person whose heart is not pure, has no love, but they talk about love. And they talk about things that are good. And then they will do it. They will eliminate others.
Wow.
That actually is what's really going on. And that's the freaky part. Now, let's say, for example, I'm going through my day and let's bring it to something more practical. Young person who wants to experience a sense of feeling their autonomy, their freedom. So what does it look like for young people? Often it's, you know, how they look, who likes them, who they hang out with, what they do. Okay? But what they're feeling down inside is not a sense of peace and love and autonomy with themselves. But they don't even know that, all right? Because they're not taught about this. So what they're taught to do is go out into the world and you'll find it. So how do we find it? Kids end up being mean to other kids because it makes them feel powerful for a while. Or, you know, a kid goes out there and decides, I'm going to get myself, you know, a partner, a girlfriend, a boyfriend, whatever you want to call it. And that becomes messy. But for a while, they feel good. They conquer them. That's what they're doing. They're using that energy to get that person, okay? And then when they finished, you know what, to send them a text, sorry, no more, and they're off to the next one. Well, the consequences of this are incredible to the individual, let alone to the whole, to the family, to the community. This kind of thinking. It's going on all the time, all the time. We've all done it. We've all, you know, I grew up in it. I grew up doing it. And I know everyone else around me still doing it. Listen, there's still people who want me to be different. There's still people I want to be different. And these are supposedly people that are close to me.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Forget about what's going on in the other world. Anyway, so, you know, for me, what I always propose is maybe really look inside, but also get some accurate information about understanding this universe. And we are not physical beings.
So it's twofold. The things that you're saying is twofold. One is to understand that when you're having feelings and thoughts and all the rest of it, you need to go inside and listen, because that is information. That tells you where you are. And
Listen, watch, feel it, look at it, embrace it,
Yeah,
even though it's ugly.
yeah.
But that's the only solution and the only way I can ever start healing anything in my life. You know, I always was fascinated by why we were called human beings, you know. Why weren't we called two-legged wanderers? You know, whatever. You know, my instinct was to look it up. And lo and behold, I wonder how many people know this, that the word human being came from a word, humanus kind of thing, which was, I think, Greek or Latin, and it meant of the earth. And that's really interesting. Literal. We're not of the earth. We never will be. We're here on earth, playing, having some fun, but we're not of the earth. It's not physically possible. It defies logic. But there's so much rationale thinking behind that that's what we buy into. You know, we've got 1 and 1 equals 3. We don't have an understanding of true mathematics. 1 and 1 will never be 3.
So you've got contrast, and then you're also pointing to understand the bigger picture.
And perception.
Yeah.
Those 3 are so linked together, all right? It's always going to be in my perception. Remember that. So it's that simple. What is my perception? Go within and start paying attention. It's telling you what your perception is.
Yeah.
There's no right or wrong, no judgment. You know,
No.
for me, one of the most important steps I took after doing all the things I did, you know, the psychology, the gurus, the books, was when I finally started to just observe what was going on inside me without judgment. Those two things were so difficult to do to begin with. Doing it without judgment. Doing it without judgment. Being the observer, the witness without judgment.
Yeah,
So
because
difficult.
there is, I mean, that the thing about the judgment is that there is a huge tendency to become aware of a thought that you're having about something and then judge it. And
Yeah.
thinking, I shouldn't be that
But
way.
you see, what I didn't understand, Jane, because I didn't have enough information, was the judgment's based on erroneous information. I'm judging someone or myself based on information that I've just habitually been raised in. Yeah?
Yeah.
So I'm judging. The judging has a rationale to it. It actually has what appears to be a logic
Have
to
you
it.
got an example?
Yeah, you know, we talked about this one yesterday that I had with the guy in my earring. You know, so I was judging him because he came from a completely different world from me. Because in my world, people who lived their life like that, you just didn't hang out with. You stayed away from them. There was something about them. So that's like someone judging someone for being gay or judging someone because of their color. Okay? So the information I've been raised in has created a threat in me already. You know, so a threat to my ego, to my identity. You know, so I'm judging. That's wrong information. And then I shouldn't feel that. You shouldn't feel this. Is information. All right? And then so the best alternative is stop feeling it. I'm going to do everything I can not to feel what's really going on inside me. I'm going to fill my life with something, whether it's medication, labels that justify medication to our kids, drugs, you know, whatever it is. I'm going to fill my life so I don't stop feeling that stuff. That's the information that is the most powerful thing. It is, in my opinion, and I'm saying this is only my opinion, having lived the life I've lived, which has been interesting, fascinating, and involved numerous mistakes, numerous cock-ups, where I obviously wasn't spiritual enough, smart enough, religious enough, I wasn't worthy enough. I came to the conclusion that all of that stuff was a bunch of nonsense. Okay, what was in me was giving me the solution in the contrast, but I needed to pay more attention to that and stop going away from that. You know, it was there because we are all from the same place. We come from the same source.
Yeah.
And this is a bit of information that is dramatically missing from society. We are not of the physical. It's not possible. And that's actually a damn good thing. You know, if people really follow through their logic, the way they think. So what most people really believe is I am Anthony, I'm my body, my thoughts, my feelings. I vaguely know I'm going to die one day, but I don't really believe it because I'm going to do everything I can while I'm around to stop, you know, really getting with it.
Yeah.
And then just before it's about to happen, I'm going to shit myself because, you know, I don't know now what's going to happen, but it's reality. I'm in bed and they've told me I've got a few more days left and maybe, you know, and it's crazy. All right. And, you know, some people believe that, yes, there's a place for them in heaven, and some people believe they're going to go to hell. It depends what you've been raised with, okay? It's insane. Sorry, it's such a fantasy and a fabrication of the human consciousness that's unbelievable, okay? No fairy tale story writer, no Hollywood writer has written anything more creatively insane and of a fantasy than the whole human experience, what we believe about ourselves, okay, and how we perceive everything. It is such a fabrication, and yet we buy into it completely, okay? And it's just amazing to observe it. It's amazing to observe it in myself and how I've lived my life, and now observe it in the world around me. It's an extraordinary thing. And yet, this place, this life could be amazing. It should have been the Garden of Eden. That's why the metaphor was there. All right? But interesting enough, I wonder how many people know this one, just to throw one in. I never knew this, because I was led to believe that the Garden of Eden, Adam and Eve, and the snake got them to eat of the tree of not the apple.
Yeah.
I never knew there was another tree, the tree of life, the eternal. And I never knew that. I mean, it's amazing. I only found that out a few years ago, and I thought, wow, that's interesting. Because then I kind of started to contemplate, what could that have meant? What was that trying to teach us? Tree of life is about who we really are. We're eternal. We will always be alive. We just may not be in a body. Okay? And I believe that not only scientists like Einstein knew that, there are many others who know that. Okay? And there were many prophets who walked this earth who wrote about this and taught about this. But they also understood that the level of stupidity and ignorance in a human being is mind-blowing because of the fantasy. People will believe absolute nonsense. They will kill millions for it. All right? They will vote into power master manipulators who only want one thing, the same power that most of us want. We vote them in. It's brilliant. Okay? Because we all have bought into the fantasy.
Yes.
Now, so what am I saying in all of this? I'm saying, look at your own life. I looked at my life and I thought, was it really bringing me the peace, the amount of joy, the amount of sense of security that I wanted? No, it wasn't. But I had done pretty well by most standards. But the fact is, inside there wasn't what I wanted. And that's what got my attention. I thought, something's not right. Because I don't believe that about this universe. I don't believe that about God. So I don't, all right? I used to. I used to really believe that, God had some mysterious plan and was observing this going on. Maybe one day would come and bail my arse out and save us, all right? Because that's what we were led to believe. So I did believe that. It was just that journey alone of challenging and exploring within myself what I really believed about God, when I really got down to it, and then started to question on what basis was I believing this stuff. And really questioned and really challenged it. I didn't say it was easy. It was horrible. Because I faced the serpent in me. He was always leading me down that path. Always getting me to bite off the apple of more knowledge, more apples.
More information.
Yeah, but the wrong information.
Yeah.
I was flipping from party to party, from clique to clique. I was flipping from guru to guru, one religion to another religion. Okay? But the funny thing is, and this is the beautiful thing, this is the thing I'm so grateful for. This is the thing I do thank the universe for. Even in my days when I'm having a hard time, I so appreciate that the contrast I experience all the time has always been there, the inbuilt guidance system. All I needed to do was allow myself to question, observe more, and allow my consciousness, my vibration to expand, my awareness to expand more. And as I started to allow my awareness to expand, so how did that apply? That maybe the person sitting opposite me actually isn't as bad as I think they are, based on their color, race, religion, sexual choices, and actually get to know some of them. I remember an amazing experience happened to me. I was working in a place in Canada. I've always had an affinity towards the Native American people. Okay.
Yeah.
I got to be honest. I always called them the Indians, but I loved them. All right.
Yeah.
I didn't go for the political correctness of the Native Americans. To me, they were the Apache, the Sioux, the different, and I loved them. I don't know, maybe I was one of them in my past life. So I'm working in Canada, and in walks this extraordinary 6-foot-something man with long black hair, Native American. Beautiful man. My heart swelled up with joy when I saw this man. Okay? Because it's the first time I was about to really meet a Native American. You know, it's like amazing. Yeah, I'm from Africa, you know, kind of thing. You know, so I get to meet him, and I find out after a while he's gay.
Yeah.
That shook me a little bit, to be honest. Not terribly, but it did shake me a little bit. And it shook me because what was I scared of? What do you think came up as the fear when I really looked at it? He may fancy me. Okay. And he admitted he did. But he knew that it was irrelevant. I knew it was irrelevant. And what a relationship I have with this guy, okay? And he was, you know, his family chain of the Plains people were chiefs.
Right.
His history. This was the real thing, okay? This was like meeting what I dreamed of all my life.
Yeah.
And yet, that was, you know, that little bit of, that one moment was going to stop me. But I thought, come on, get in there, you know?
Yeah.
And he was just the most exquisite man. And what a friendship I had with him. It was short-lived because, you know, unfortunately, he had AIDS and he was going to eventually go. This was a man who sang at Carnegie Hall. He had such a beautiful voice. He was just the most extraordinary person. And I learned so much from being around him. And we would joke about it because he said to me, you know, you're a good-looking young man. Of course I find you attractive.
Yeah.
But, you know, it expanded my awareness. From that day onwards, my whole perception around a gay man changed.
Yeah.
Because what I learned to do was I learned to make the decision on whether my values and their values were the same. Okay? Not on something that was so simple and physical, you know, so superficial, but very much powerful information that I've been raised with. Okay?
Yeah.
And in expanding that, it just opened a new avenue for me, and it became about the values. Who was this being? What was important? You know, and we had so many similar values because we had had a similar path. He had a path of overcoming enormous pain. I had a path of having to overcome pain, the pain of depression, wanting to be suicidal, hating myself, despising myself. I couldn't look at myself in a mirror for about 6 years when I shaved. Could not look at my eyes.
Wow.
That's how I felt about myself. Wow. And I know, I see it today in so many thousands of people I meet around the streets. Because they can't look you in the eyes. Okay? They can't look you in the eye when they want to say no. They can't look you in the eye when they want to express joy. That tells me, because I know I've been there. All right, I know what's going on. And, you know, so he and I, our friendship, our connection was based on love and values that we shared. We both had the same values in the end. What we both realized we responded to was real goodness, forgiveness, non-judgment. You know, he didn't want me to change my life, and I didn't want him to become someone different, so that it would be easier for me. Okay? You know, I don't apologize for the fact that I do evaluate my relationships with people based on things like values. I'm not going to do it because of political decisions. I'm not going to like someone because I'm told to. All right?
Or dislike someone.
And I'm not, no, well, that changed. I confronted that through him and others that I met, where I confronted my dislikes based on that. But I never realized that, I never questioned who I liked until all of this started on social media recently. Okay? And then I started to think, okay, they you know, the world wants me to like everyone and be all-inclusive and, you know, everyone...
Except for these people.
No, okay, yes, because there are...
people,
Yes, I understand. But those flavors change every few years or few months. Okay. No, I do it based on what I consider to be certain values. Okay, so characteristics, their true character. You know. And that includes, by the way, my own family members. That includes people I have been friends with in the past that I choose no longer to hang out with. I'm okay with that. All right? And it would include people I haven't even yet met who are good people that share values with me, who genuinely want to see something change. So I don't make an apology about that. But, you know, I'm not going to...
And so this is part of your information system. if you like, your thoughts, your feelings, your values,
Yes.
are the things that are the internal navigation.
Yeah. But
And your
it's
connection.
but it's also going deeper, because I realized recently someone asked me about values. What were mine? And out of 10, how do I think I was doing with them? And when I got to it, there were a couple of them that are really important to me that I realized I was like operating 3 out of 10. And when they asked me why, I said, because I noticed that right now there are so many people out there that I cannot believe how stupid they are, that I've stopped kind of having any, even treating them with a sense of respect that's important to me. It's not about them.
No.
Okay, my own value of respect is just to let them be, just to smile, giggle sometimes, because it is quite funny watching what they're doing, okay?
Yeah.
And not be in a state of judging them and I realized I'd stopped doing that, okay? Because I was making it about them. That's how powerful the snake is. That's how powerful the human consciousness is. That's how powerful that devil
it wants
is.
to throw you into opposition.
Sorry?
It wants to throw you into opposition.
Correct.
To people that you don't agree with or don't meet, you know.
But this is going on
Whatever
all
it
the
might
time
be.
within us.
Absolutely.
In relationship to everything,
Absolutely.
particularly in relationship to the things we want. And this is where it's insane. That's why I say it's insane. Because when you bring it down to the things I say I want to have in my life, that's going on. It's more obvious when I can blame the world, do you understand? Because there is stuff going on in the world that we can all put our attention on. But it's actually going on at the small detail of the lives we live in relationship to our lives right now, our well-being, our health, our bank account, the joy we're having, the peace we're having, security we're experiencing. It's going on in relationship to that. That's the one that's important. You know, what's going on in other parts of the world actually is irrelevant. It's been going on for 50,000 years. I'm sorry, some people don't know that, okay? Or maybe didn't realize that. And they're still trying to change that because they're miserable. Because right now their heart's filled with so much anger and upset. It's filled with the serpent. Okay? And they are genuinely, by the way, I understand. Their level of depression, their level of frustration is relevant to them. But it's all based on false information. You know, what got my attention was when I also understood, having talked to someone who I trust their judgment and their wisdom, said to me, it's a really funny thing is, you are going to connect with the source when you die. That's the good news. Okay? Doesn't mean you're not going to come back and have to go through it all again. You know, that depends whether people want to believe that or not. That's maybe a different subject. But they said to me, why don't you start connecting now? You know, start shortcutting the process.
Sure.
Yeah. Just be willing to let go of some of the stuff. You know, even though it feels like it's a threat. But the hardest one to let go of is let go of being Anthony. Let go of being Jane. Let go of being how you describe yourself, your pronouns. I mean, that's amazing, that one. I love that. It's hilarious right now. I mean, it just added a new level of stress and belief system to some people that will cause them pain in their lives. The pronoun. Okay? I have a pronoun, by the way, because my son sometimes said, Dad, what is your pronoun, when they were joking with me? And I said, I am a NFB. And they said, what is an NFB? I said, a non-physical being. And they said, yeah, but you don't spell physical with an F. I said, that's the whole point. Non-physical being, I am.
Very good.
You know. Anyway, Jane, it's always a pleasure.
Yes, and for me.